Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, we are starting our painting project. And today what we're doing is we're going to start mixing and tinting and shading with paint. Because we're using just black and white, really what our goal is to get a lot of shades of gray. If you notice right now, a couple of things to get us started. You want a paint palette. If you notice on my paint palette, I have a really, really small amount of black. Then I have several dots of white. When we mix paint, especially black and white paint, for different shades of gray, it is always easiest to add black to white instead of the other way around. If we try to add white paint to black paint, we'll use a tremendous unnecessary amount of white paint. So we want to add the black paint to the white. And I've got 4 dots, tiny, tiny dots, smaller than a dime of white paint, and then 1 dime size of black. And if you look, I've got a pretty small brush, a medium to small brush, and I can take just a tiny bit of black paint on the end of my brush like this, and then I can mix it in one of my dots of white paint, and of course I start getting a really, really light shade of gray. Once I've got that light shade of gray, I can, in my sketchbook, I've got it, in fact, this is very, very light. I can then, in my sketchbook, go to my value scale, because this is going to be one of the first things I want you to do, and to get a light shade of gray here. I'm leaving this blank because that's going to be white. Once I've got a comfortable amount there, since I've already got it mixed, what I will do is then go into my painting here, and I will find the lightest areas of my painting, or the lightest areas of my composition. So if you look right here in the house, you can see this is a pretty light shade of gray. Down here, it's pretty light, and the bushes of this tree are pretty light. So what I'll do first is I'll just start painting this white. Now I can go back over this with darker shades, but this gives a nice base layer that I can go in and start working on some of the lighter grays that I'm creating. And I'm going to leave that now, for now, but then I'm going to wash my brush and make sure it's really cleaned off. I always have scrap paper here so that I can, and paper towels, so I can wipe the paint off my brush, the water off my brush. I can dip a little bit more black into that same pile of gray that I have, and I can darken it up a hair more, creating a darker value that I can then, you can look, I've got a ton of paint on the end of my brush. That's why it's always nice, always wipe off. We should be using the tip of our brush, but because I'm using it to mix, it's getting a little messy. So I always kind of wipe it off like that, and then I'd grab a little bit of the paint I just used, and I'd start putting that above the first shade of gray that I made. So I'm basically repeating the process. And then I can wash my brush and repeat it again. Add just a hair. I'm going to wipe it, wipe off this excess paint, and I can add just a touch more, and I've got too much there, so I know I do because that's way too much black. So I'm going to wipe some of that off. I'm going to add that into the gray that I'm making here, and I just get a hair darker. And I can repeat this process over and over again until I have 100 different values of gray. Remember, I told you to shoot for at least 7. But if you look right here, you can see I'm gradually creating what's called a gradation. I'm getting a lot of values with paint. And I'll just repeat it. When I feel like I've exhausted this pile of paint right here and it's getting too messy and so on, then I'll move to the next one and I'll try to create darker values and move on. What I'd like you to do today, and it's probably going to go into Monday, is to create a value scale. Get as many values as you can, but have minimally 7. And then while you're doing that, or after you do it, it's up to you, you can get in here and start working on your little composition and go, okay, this is going to be a medium gray here, and you can start painting some of this. It's going to take you, probably an hour to get all of this done. But really what I want you to play around with is mixing a lot of different values with paint and then figuring out how to apply them in a composition. And that's it. Okay, ready? Go.